Tiffany Henyard's tumultuous political career took an unexpected and shocking twist when she was arrested by the FBI during a municipal council meeting in Dalton, Illinois, on charges of embezzling $2 million in public funds. The scandal surrounding her has left the community in disbelief, with rumors of corruption and criminal activity circulating for months. Adding to the chaos, two key political positions were mysteriously rewritten, fueling even more speculation. With a total of $12 million in estate at stake, the scandal has dealt a severe blow to Henyard's reputation and has shaken the town's trust in its leadership to its core.
Political jobs on two public payrolls. As mayor of South Suburban Dalton, or as she calls herself, Super.
The meeting wrapped up early because two trustees, as you mentioned, did not show up. Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carla.
Tiffany Henyard's controversial political career in Dodon, Illinois, has reached new, scandalous heights, shocking both her harshest critics and the community she was elected to serve. Once hailed as the super mayor who would turn around a financially struggling village, Henyard now stands accused of embezzling $2 million in taxpayer funds, a development that has left Dodon in crisis and the FBI investigating one of the largest scandals the town has ever faced. For years, rumors of corruption swirled around Henyard. Initially praised for her ambition, her tenure quickly became overshadowed by accusations of financial mismanagement and theft. The funds allegedly diverted by Henyard were meant to repair Dodon's deteriorating infrastructure, roads, water systems, and essential public services that were desperately in need of attention. Instead, those funds were allegedly funneled into Henyard's personal accounts, a betrayal that has devastated residents who had hoped for change. The public's anger is palpable. One resident, embodying the sentiment of many, remarked, "She should be fixing the streets, not lining her pockets." The $2 million which could have revitalized the community has instead been stolen, leaving Dodon's residents feeling not only financially robbed, but also emotionally betrayed by the very leader they trusted to improve their lives. The community's frustration is compounded by reports that Henyard allegedly used the stolen funds to fund a lavish personal lifestyle while the town's infrastructure continued to crumble. As the FBI investigation deepens, new revelations are emerging, suggesting that the scope of Henyard's alleged crimes may be far larger than anyone initially suspected. It now appears that her actions were part of a deliberate scheme to misappropriate funds, deepening the community's sense of betrayal. With this scandal, Dodon residents are no longer asking, "How could this happen?" but are instead left wondering how such a leader could be so reckless with the trust placed in her. Despite overwhelming evidence against her, Henyard has defiantly announced her intention to run for re-election, a move that has only fueled public outrage. Residents are appalled by her audacity to seek another term while she is accused of stealing from them. This tone-deaf decision has led many to believe that Henyard is no longer capable of understanding the severity of her situation, let alone the needs of the community she was elected to serve. Adding to her troubles, Henyard is now embroiled in a legal battle related to an unpaid rent dispute with her landlord, further tarnishing her already damaged reputation. Despite reportedly earning a six-figure salary, Henyard has allegedly failed to meet basic financial obligations, including paying rent on her property since August. Her landlord, Janetta Ho, has expressed deep disappointment, especially after Henyard changed the locks to avoid eviction, an action that has further contributed to the growing perception that Henyard is incapable of managing both her personal and professional responsibilities. The stark contrast between Henyard's mismanagement of public funds and her inability to manage her own finances has led many to question her leadership abilities. How can a mayor who is allegedly failing to pay rent and facing eviction be trusted to oversee a town in financial distress? Her personal financial troubles reflect the broader issues of poor decision-making and corruption that have plagued her. Time in office. Despite the growing public anger, Henyard remains defiant, continuing to make decisions that only serve to further isolate her from the community she was once tasked with serving. Her attempt to run for re-election in the face of such overwhelming evidence of misconduct is seen by many as a desperate, tone-deaf move that only reinforces how out of touch she has become with the realities facing Doden. As the investigation continues, it is becoming increasingly clear that Henyard's time in office is rapidly approaching its end. The public has seen enough, and trust in her leadership has evaporated. What started as a series of questionable decisions has now spiraled into a full-blown crisis, one that has left Doden in shambles and Henyard's political future hanging by a thread. The people of Doden are now left to pick up the pieces of a community fractured by Henyard's actions. The road to rebuilding trust in the local government will be long and difficult, but for many residents, it will be impossible to forget the betrayal they have experienced. As the full extent of the scandal unfolds, it is clear that Henyard's reputation is irreparably damaged, and it will likely take years for Doden to recover from the destruction caused by her leadership.
Credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas?
Tiffany Henyard's once promising political career has devolved into a chaotic and deeply troubling spectacle. What was initially seen as ambitious leadership in the town of Doden, Illinois, has now become a stage for erratic behavior and a blatant disregard for authority. Henyard's actions in recent months have left both residents and political observers shocked, as her leadership appears more centered on personal drama than effective governance. One of the most shocking developments occurred when Henyard's promotional banners, which celebrated her title as Super Mayor, were removed by the Board of Trustees. Instead of accepting this decision with grace, Henyard's response was explosive. She called the police, demanding that the workers responsible be arrested for stealing government property. This highly unusual reaction raised concerns about her priorities, with one worker describing her behavior as alarming, noting that she seemed more interested in using her office for personal gain than in serving the community. As tensions grew, the situation continued to spiral. Township Supervisor Mike called for a special meeting to approve events Henyard wanted the township to fund, but the meeting was abruptly canceled when not a single trustee showed up. This abandonment highlighted the widening rift between Henyard and the very people she was supposed to be working with. The isolation she faced seemed to grow daily, as she appeared increasingly fixated on controlling the public spotlight. Rather than addressing the town's pressing needs, public meetings, which should have focused on important town affairs, increasingly degenerated into chaotic spectacles filled with shouting matches, walkouts, and police involvement. Henyard became the focal point of each gathering, turning what should have been routine governance into a platform for her personal drama. The public's frustration mounted as key discussions about the town's future were sidelined in favor of Henyard's increasingly bizarre outbursts. Perhaps the most alarming moment in Henyard's tenure came when she attempted to appoint an ETUS unqualified individual to the position of police chief. Critics saw this as an obvious attempt to consolidate power. Yet when confronted with this criticism, Henyard dismissed it, claiming that her detractors were simply jealous. This deflection only served to deepen the doubts surrounding her leadership abilities and her understanding of what it means to govern effectively. It became clear that Henyard was more concerned with securing her own narrative than with addressing the real issues facing Doden. As rumors of corruption mounted, federal investigators began probing Henyard's role in the town's mayoral office and her dual role as township supervisor. Witness interviews and an ongoing investigation indicated that criminal charges could potentially be on the horizon. The full scope of the investigation remains unclear, but one thing is certain: Henyard's reign has been marked by severe public scrutiny, and the walls are closing in on her. In a particularly bizarre and humiliating turn, Henyard took to Facebook, live to broadcast a 90-minute tirade against her detractors. The video was an attempt to portray herself as a victim amid the mounting allegations, including accusations of embezzling public funds. Rather than calming the public, this broadcast only served to further damage her already fragile public image. One resident pointed out that Henyard's threats to arrest anyone who opposed her were indicative of her complete detachment from the community and its needs. The growing consensus among Doden's residents is that Henyard has shown utter disregard for the law, for the people she was elected to serve, and for basic decency. Her leadership style has turned local politics into a chaotic theater, with her primary concern being the maintenance of her own power. She has undermined authority, appointed unqualified individuals to key positions, and used public platforms to lash out at anyone who dares to challenge her. What began as a promising rise in local politics has now spiraled into a saga of scandal, self-destruction, and the very real possibility of criminal consequences. The federal investigation into Henyard's conduct is intensifying, and each passing day raises the stakes. Whether or not criminal charges are eventually brought against her, it is clear that Henyard has crossed a line from which there is no easy return. Her political career, once full of potential, is now rapidly spiraling out of control, and the people of Doden are left to watch in disbelief as her fall from grace continues to unfold. For the residents of Doden, who once believed in Henyard's promises of progress and change, the reality of their situation is now a cycle of chaos, uncertainty, and disillusionment. As the investigation continues and more details come to light, it's likely that the full extent of Henyard's decline will be revealed. But for many in Doden, the damage may already be done. Henyard's tenure, once seen as a chance for revitalization, is now defined by scandal, corruption, and an ongoing struggle to salvage what little remains of her reputation. Her public displays of defiance, combined with her disregard for the rule of law, have created an environment of deep distrust and anger. The public's once hopeful view of her leadership has been replaced with disbelief, as they watch her unravel before their eyes. Henyard's political future is now uncertain, and the end of her reign, once considered unimaginable, now seems inevitable.
Supervisor Tiffany Henyard wanted the Board of Trustees to approve some events that she wants the township to pay for, but none of the trustees showed up for this special meeting.
Tiffany Henyard's grip on power in Doon and Theron Township is weakening by the day, but she continues to act as if she is untouchable, treating the town like her personal kingdom. Despite overwhelming evidence that she is no longer seen as a capable leader by the majority, Henyard remains defiant, seemingly oblivious to the growing discontent around her. Recently, she erupted in an outburst at a city council meeting, apparently believing it would boost her image on social media and make her the talk of the town. However, rather than rallying support, her actions were met with widespread derision. At the meeting, Henyard's devoted followers filled the room, cheering her on as she lamented the alleged financial instability of the township. However, the meeting took a sharp turn when it became apparent that Henyard's own decisions were largely responsible for the township's financial woes. Her supporters, seemingly oblivious to the reality of the situation, continued to applaud her, reinforcing her delusional belief that she was some sort of local hero. But the moment that truly highlighted her disconnect from reality came when she compared herself to former President Donald Trump. Henyard boldly declared that she would win re-election in a landslide despite the mounting scandal, saying, "I'm coming in strong. The people know the truth, and they will stand by me." The room fell silent, followed by uncomfortable laughter, signaling the growing skepticism toward her leadership. The derision was impossible to ignore. It was clear that Henyard's bravado and self-importance had alienated even those who had once supported her. Meanwhile, the township's financial situation remained dire, unable to pay its bills or conduct necessary business, and a board of trustees that was failing to attend meetings. Yet Henyard persisted in presenting herself as a victorious leader, completely detached from the turmoil she had caused. Henyard's former ally, Carmen Ascent, revealed that her rise to power was less about a genuine desire to serve the people, and more about a carefully orchestrated political play. Carmen's revelations paint a troubling picture of Henyard's true agenda, suggesting that her political career was built on financial mismanagement and corruption from the very beginning. As more information emerges linking Henyard directly to the township's financial difficulties, the people of Dune and Thoron Township are beginning to wake up to the reality of her actions, and they are not pleased. Henyard's judgment is now under intense scrutiny, not only for her financial mismanagement, but also for her handling of law enforcement. One of her most questionable decisions was appointing an unqualified candidate as police chief, which many saw as a blatant power grab. When questioned about this decision, Henyard reacted defensively, dismissing valid concerns and demonstrating her refusal to listen to anyone outside her tight-knit group of supporters. Her combative and aggressive response to criticism highlights the extent of Henyard's ego and her determination to retain power at all costs, no matter how much it undermines the law and the will of the people. It has become increasingly apparent that Henyard's closest supporters are more interested in personal gain than in serving the public. They either turn a blind eye to the growing scandal surrounding her, or are simply unconcerned by the mounting evidence of corruption and mismanagement. However, things are beginning to change. The myth of Henyard as a champion of the people is rapidly disintegrating as more evidence of corruption, financial mismanagement, and abuse of power comes to light. What is perhaps most alarming about the situation is Henyard's refusal to take accountability for her actions. Her Facebook Live tirade, where she compared herself to Trump, is just one example of her defiance and refusal to confront the mounting pressure to be held accountable. Instead of addressing the growing concerns, Henyard doubled down, pretending that everything was fine. Her moral culpability continues to grow as she remains indifferent to the serious issues facing her community. The people of Dune and Thoron Township are waking up to the reality that they have been led by someone who values power above all else. The laughter that followed her Trump comparison at the council meeting was a stark indication that Henyard has lost touch with the reality of her leadership. The persistent defiance, refusal to resign, and complete disregard for the mounting dissatisfaction among the community have only fueled the anger of residents who are now demanding the accountability that they have long been denied. As the situation continues to unfold, it is clear that Henyard's political career is unraveling before her eyes. What once seemed like a display of strength now appears as a desperate attempt to cling to power. The people of Dune and Thoron Township are no longer willing to allow her to continue down this path of self-destruction. The more Henyard defies reality and the law, the more likely it is that she will face the consequences of her actions. The question now is not if Henyard will be held accountable, but when. After nearly 2 years of allegations of corruption surrounding Henyard in her capacity as both Dalton mayor and Thoron Township supervisor, multiple sources now confirm that federal agents are actively interviewing witnesses as part of a possible investigation. Tiffany Henyard has become a deeply controversial figure in Dune, and with every move she makes to consolidate power, she only seems to alienate more people around her. One of her latest controversial decisions, appointing a police chief who isn't even certified, has sparked outrage among both residents and trustees. Many see it as yet another blatant example of Henyard's disregard for the law. Trustees, in particular, are growing increasingly concerned about her flagrant disrespect for state laws and regulations. Despite mounting criticism, Henyard has pressed on, disregarding the concerns of both local officials and state authorities. Things took a further absurd turn when Henyard filed a lawsuit against the trustees for daring to hold meetings without her present. This legal action only escalated tensions that were already at an all-time high, making it clear that the environment under Henyard's leadership has become toxic and divisive. Public gatherings, which should have been focused on productive discussions and decision-making, have instead devolved into chaotic spectacles. At one point, residents jeered Henyard as she left the platform, with one individual shouting, "Why won't you step down? This is disgraceful." Henyard's response to calls for accountability has been consistent with her behavior throughout her tenure. She deflects blame and refuses to take responsibility for her actions. When pressed on the growing disorder under her leadership, she deflected, claiming, "I'm not the one on anything," and dismissed questions about an improperly registered foundation by saying she had no idea what the foundation did or how much money it had raised. This only served to confirm suspicions that Henyard has been involved in a web of increasingly dubious activities. As the FBI continues its investigation into Henyard's behavior, even some of her most loyal supporters are beginning to have doubts. With each passing day, her circle of allies seems to shrink, and it's becoming harder to ignore the cracks in her leadership. As pressure builds, Henyard's refusal to step down only fuels the growing sense of disbelief among Dune residents. Her recent Facebook post, in which she defiantly declared, "They can try to tear me down, but I'm not going anywhere," has only garnered collective criticism from residents, many of whom now view her situation as a farce rather than a legitimate political scandal. Her arrogance and refusal to resign, combined with her disdain for the law, have left many wondering how much longer she can hold on to power. The FBI's investigation is ongoing, and it seems the question is no longer if Henyard will face the consequences, but when, as the investigation into Tiffany Henyard continues, her list of scandals only grows longer, and the once promising trajectory of her political career now seems all but doomed. It appears almost inevitable that her time in office is coming to an end. Yet Henyard's determination to cling to power raises a significant question. Will she be forced out, or will her defiance and manipulation enable her to hold on longer than expected? The situation is escalating quickly, and the residents of Dune and Thorin Township are watching closely, waiting for the day when Henyard can no longer escape the consequences of her actions. Her political career, which once appeared filled with potential and promise, is now buried under layers of controversy, and the public is increasingly losing patience with her. From financial mismanagement to her disregard for legal and ethical responsibilities, Henyard's leadership has left the community in a state of turmoil. With each new revelation, it becomes harder for the people to believe that she has the interests of the community at heart. Despite the mounting pressure and growing frustration, Henyard continues to deflect blame, issuing statements designed to manipulate public opinion and preserve her grip on power. Her defiance only seems to fuel the anger of the residents who have grown weary of the chaos and dysfunction that has plagued their town under her rule. Yet, her refusal to step down and the apparent support from a small group of loyal followers have raised concerns about just how long she can cling to office. One thing is certain: Tiffany Henyard's saga is far from over. Each new twist in the investigation, each new controversy that emerges, makes it even harder to predict how this story will ultimately unfold. The pressure is building, but Henyard's defiance suggests that she may try to delay the inevitable as long as possible. The Future of leadership in Doon and Thorin Township remains uncertain, and the residents can only hope that justice will eventually prevail. For now, it is a tense waiting game as the investigation continues and more developments are likely to emerge. The public is already beginning to see Henyard for what she truly is, someone who values power above all else, and it's only a matter of time before the full extent of her actions comes to light. The people of Doon are demanding accountability, and frustration and anger continue to mount. The situation is reaching a boiling point, and the future of Henyard's leadership is now a matter of when, not if, she will face the consequences. The town can only look on in disbelief as Henyard's once promising political career unravels, leaving behind a legacy of scandal, corruption, and chaos. The question remains, how much longer can she continue to defy the will of the people and escape the scrutiny of the law? The outcome of this scandal is still up in the air, but as each day passes, it becomes increasingly clear that Tiffany Henyard's time in office is running out, and the day of reckoning is fast approaching.